A very warm good afternoon, dear doctors and students. My name is Dr. Rajesh. I welcome you all on this Homeopathy 360 platform. Today we are again available here to present a very good webinar on the specific topic. You all are very much aware of that. And today we have a very good speaker. So kindly be settled down as soon as possible. Our presenter has also joined us, so she will be guide you all in a moment. So please join us. Please ensure whether you are able to hear us properly and see us. And in a meanwhile, we will start the webinar. In the meanwhile, I request Dr. Yashika. Dr. Yashika, please guide the audience and proceed the webinar further. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. So here we are today again with you all. A very warm afternoon to everybody present with us today. A very warm welcome to our speaker, to the speaker of today, Dr. Nagendra Babu sir. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar by Team Homeopathy 360. For all of you joining us and already joined, I, Dr. Yashika Arora, heartily welcome you all. I will be the moderator for today's session for all of you. So before we begin, let me introduce you to our platform that is Homeopathy 360, the treasury of knowledge and hidden talents. It is one of the most updated portals of all kinds of course material for students, research updates, career opportunities, latest news, latest events, job vacancies, during the lockdown period as well. Wherever the job opportunities is being available for homeopathic doctors, we try our best to make you updated about them. We try to connect homeopaths all over the world and make homeopathy and evidence-based science through our portal uh, by providing you case studies, by providing you research papers through our portal. It has been an exceptional education hub for each generation of homeopaths, and I would also like to request on behalf of my whole team, whoever is present with us today, so I would like to invite you and contribute your knowledge and experiences at our website www.homeopathy360.com. All your expertise are being welcomed. And I also want to acquaint you with members of our team today who will be working behind the scenes while we conduct this webinar. Welcome Dr. Rajesh. He'll be with us at the backend system to ensure that the webinar runs smooth. Also, I would like to introduce you to this platform who all are new to this platform. You have a chat box on your screens on the right hand side corner wherein you can type your questions and send to us by pressing the button next to the box. You can also raise your hand. You have an option in the upper right corner to raise your hand and ask your questions. We'll be running a question answer session at the end of the webinar where you can clarify your queries with the speaker. So without wasting any more time and not testing much of your patience, let me invite the speaker of today to all of you. He is Dr. G. Nagendra Babu sir. He'll be discussing on decrypting posology. The topic of today is decrypting posology. He is the professor and HOD of Sri Sai Ram Homeopathic Medical College, Chennai, and also a Best Doctor awardee of TN Dr. MGR Medical University. He has been an author. He has been the author of comprehensive study of organon book as well. He'll be discussing the practical application of posology in the practice. So now I would like to invite him without wasting any more time. Welcome, sir, to the platform, and we are thankful to you for being with us here today. And I am also very much curious to listen to you and learn from you. So please begin the session.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. Yeah, good afternoon, one and all. Doctor, am I audible?
Sir, you're
Hello?
audible and clear. Sir, you're audible
Yeah.
and clear.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Just clarifying it. Yeah, good afternoon, one and all. Welcome to today's presentation done by me. Thank you for joining anyway. To start, before starting the session, let me be a little formal. Let me thank BJN Group, especially Homeopathy 360, for giving me this opportunity, and especially Mr. Manish, Dr. Yashika, and Dr. Rajesh for helping me on all these sessions, and Mr. Sundar from South India BJN Group, and I thank you for inviting me over here. And most importantly, Sri Sai Ram Homeopathic Medical College, Chennai, the management, principal, staff members, and students, my lovable students, for making me what I am today. And last but not the least, my lovable, loyal patients who gave me the practicality of homeopathy. They gave me the opportunity to learn and apply homeopathy. Yeah, thank you very much. Formality is over. Today's subject is posology. When I was a student, somewhere around 20 years back, when I started my practice, homeopathic practice, getting material on posology was a bit difficult. So there were few books available, and most of the confusion was there how to apply posology. So posology is a subject was confused with potentization. So no, it is not that. Potentization is a part of social posology. When I started writing my book, Comprehensive Study of Organon, so I had to collect, I have to refer many number of books and collect a lot of material. And there is a chapter on posology in my book also. So today's presentation, I can say it is more of a collection of information taken from many pioneers. Like Master Heinemann in Chronic Diseases book says, most of the time, any physician will make three mistakes in their practice. First thing is selection of simillimum. Second thing is selection of potency. And third one is repetition of dose and potency. I've included potency and dose there. Let us discuss in the next consecutive slides. We all know selection of simillimum. It's very known to us. It's very tough task in homeopathy, especially when you are a constitutional classical prescriber. You know how difficult it is to select a simillimum. In Organon of Medicine, 6th edition, in a footnote, Heinemann says, the well-selected remedy does not fall into our mouth like roasted chickens. We have to work out for it. You know, selection of simillimum is very tough. You need a knowledge of medicine. You need a knowledge of general medicine, obstetrics, surgery, and everything in the first hand. Second thing, you must know the knowledge of Mater Medica. You must master it. And once you are mastering Mater Medica, you need a knowledge of Organon. So evaluation of symptoms. Before that evaluation, we have to do analysis of the symptoms. The evaluation is a process. After the evaluation, again, we are going for referring Mater Medica and repertorization. Such process are there. It's a very industrial process. That is what the very difficult pass in homeopathy. Once the selection of simillimum is over, next comes the stage of selecting the potency and repetition of doses. Usually, after practicing few years, you will come to know that just selection of simillimum alone is not sufficient. We have to select proper dose and proper potency, and you have to balance it. Like it reminds me Wright's quotation. She says in her book, playing with potency and dose is like supplying electricity to a bulb. If you give more electricity to the bulb, for example, 40-watt bulb is there, you will give 60 watts, you lose the fuse. So selection of potency is like that. So it's as important as selecting a simillimum. So when we say posology in other medical sciences, generally, when we say posology, how much? The dose is enough. Take Ayurveda, Siddha, allopathic system, many other systems when you take. When they say dose, it is the amount, the quantity, the physical quantity of the medicine required to the patient. For example, take in allopathy system, the dosage selection will be based on the weight body kg weight of the patient, they'll choose the dosage. But what makes homeopathic posology unique is the potency and the dose, which the juniors have to make clear. Seniors, anyway, they are mastered in it now. Potency and dose. These are the two aspects which you have to have a clear-cut idea about. Here I'll take one story. I'll tell you one story. In the pre-independent area in India, one fellow started a big company, and it was an industrialization time, and he purchased a big machine from UK. He got it from UK, and he started his factory. Factory was running very beautifully. Machine had a good work, and after a few days, suddenly the machine stopped working. So he got puzzled. He called all the engineers. They tried it. Nobody could find out what is the problem with the machine. So obviously, he had to call up the manufacturers of the machine, UK. And from UK, one master engineer came, and he inspected the machine for some time. And he asked for a hammer. And hammer was provided. And exactly on one screw, he gave a small hit. Immediately after the hit, the machine started working. And he went back, the machine started working, everyone is happy. After a few days, a bill came to the factory, 15,000 US dollars. The company fellow shocked, and he wanted to recheck it. He called them and said, maybe the bill is wrong. The engineer said, no master, the bill is right. The $1 is for the hammer hit, and the remaining amount is to know where to hit exactly. So this is the art. Now apply the same thing to our potency and dose now. So usually we'll come across some senior homeopathic doctors who are charging heavily, right? And most of the patients will complain, sir, homeopathic medicines are very cheaper. Why this fellow is charging hectically, heavily? Because the master knows where to hit exactly, and he is charging for his masteriness. So that is what the posology. You can see to achieve the cure. In the diagram, you can see the posology is nothing but where to hit, when to hit, and how to hit. This is what the specialty of homeopathy. And it is not yet clear what is potency and dose, right? Potency is unique to homeopathy. Like when Master Heinemann started using the medicines in material doses, he could identify it. This story everyone knows, every homeopath knows, even BHMS students know it. So potency came into existence when the Heinemann started identifying the curative power, the hidden curative power of a material will increase when we start diluting the medication. Now later we are not using the word dilution because it's purely a chemical process. We have to potentize it. So it became a mathematical mechanical process. So potency is different. It is how much diluted and how much inner hidden power has been aroused in the medicine. So in potency, we say the amount of power required to stimulate the patient's curative response. That is potency. Now the dosage is, it's purely mechanical, how much physical amount of medicine that is required. So in homeopathy, we have to decide both potency as well as dose. Now going in formally now. So posology is taken from a Greek word, posos, how much, logos means science. It is a how much science. So literally speaking, posology is nothing but how much science. Again in homeopathy, we have to differentiate how much potency is required, how much dose is required, and how we have to repeat this. These two has to be considered in homeopathy. So simply speaking, posology is nothing but doctrine of doses. It includes selection, administration, and repetition of doses all together. Now the problem in teaching as well as learning as well as applying posology is concerned, there is a problem. The problem here is lack of dependable literature written by our own Master Heinemann on posology. Whenever you search, very literature of Heinemann says, accurate experience can alone determine. Now, by the time you collect your experience, you'll become old, right? So it requires a lot of experience. H.A. Roberts also says precise observation. This object is obtained. Object means the knowledge of posology. Excuse me. Repetition of doses is obtained. So the question remains the same. Selection of simillimum, we have Master Heinemann's guidelines, we have Metromedica written by him, Organon written by him. But when it comes to posology, we don't have a reliable data. Now see the Stuart Close, who has a chapter, posology, right? Most of the points that we collect is from his book only, Genius of Homeopathy, Stuart Close. See the last line, number of differing potencies he possesses, the physician possesses, and the skill with which he uses them. Skill is what? To do what others cannot do is the skill. So again, it brings us to the artistic aspect. So teaching posology, learning posology, applying posology still remains a question mark. So when I was a student, I learned this. By the time you go, you practice, you learn this, you'll become bald, you become old. Your experience is useless. Right? So we'll have to learn, we'll have to descript posology, we have to learn from the others' experiences. So we have to fetch the comb from the old man and we have to comb our hair when we are still young. Now let us be little, let us get some supports from our theory. Let us be a science, learn the science first. Because to learn posology, no other volume is left out. We have to depend on our pioneers from different schools. Now, what is this posology? Let us think practical. The curative remedy in homeopathy has to be applied. Please listen to me carefully. The curative remedy in homeopathic practice has to be applied only once consulting the surgery, obstetrics, and general medicine. See, you will prescribe a constitutional curative remedy only in curative cases which are dynamic in nature. Mechanical causes and chemical causes has to be treated with mechanical. So Stuart Close says MCD, the causes of diseases, mechanical, chemical, and dynamic. Mechanical cases, like tomorrow Dr. Yashika is presenting, I hope, cervical spondylitis, all these disorders, where you require mechanical aid along with your indicated remedy. Example, therapeutic measures other than drugs. Dr. Heinemann says 289 to 291 aphorisms. Heinemann says just administration of the remedy is not sufficient. In chronic disease also, antipsoric treatment, Heinemann says select the remedy, administer the antipsoric remedy, and diet and regime is also important. So you can put the exercise, physiotherapy, yoga, dietetics, and all these things under diet and regime. So before prescribing antipsoric remedy or classical constitutional remedy, you have to rule out whether the disease is in a curable condition or incurable condition or pathologically advanced condition. Only in curable cases, we have to apply our antipsoric curative remedies. First, you have to make sure about it. Once we have done that, now the entire classical homeopathy comes in, Heinemann and homeopathy, whatever you call it as. Now, to understand posology, coming back to the subject. Posology is nothing but the playing of medicine with the Trinity. What is this Trinity? Body, mind, and spirit. Now, we have controversy. We don't have spirit, right? So replace the spirit with vital force. Okay, body, mind, and vital force. When you are understanding posological principles, please remove all the pathological principles. Now we have to come back to classical homeopathy. Unless you do that, you cannot understand posological principles. So first point is what? That body, organism, which contains the vital force. Now into this vital force, the vital force is dynamic. And you are introducing a dynamic medicine which has to be more powerful than the dynamic miasma. So three forces are playing here. You have to make sure to understand the posological principles. First, you have to understand vital force is dynamic, the disease causing force miasm is dynamic, and the power which releases us from the miasmatic force, vital force, is also dynamic. So these three I call it as a trinity. So it's a play of trinity. It's a diagrammatic representation. So Heinemann says health is a negative term. What is a negative term? Absence of symptoms. In a healthy condition of a man, the patient is very happy. The person is very happy. He's not patient. The organism is enjoying its life. Okay, there are no symptoms at all. No symptoms is negativity. Once the miasm attacks, see the right side diagram, miasm, the equilibrium is disturbed. This disturbance equilibrium, disturbed equilibrium, we call it as dis-ease. The dis-easiness enters. Now, who is going to correct this? On the left side, we have medicine. But if you forcefully put heavy weight on the other side, it may fall down again totally. So it is nothing but the power balance. And how much power, when to use, and where to use is what posology says. So with the help of posology, you have to correctly balance the potency and the dosage. For the easy understanding, I have made this diagram on myself. Simply speaking, as the potency start increasing, mechanically your medicine physical quantity is reducing, but their capacity to produce mental symptoms, PQRS, and peculiar uncommon symptoms will increase. That is why in most of the physical cases, in a palliative physical conditions, we go for low potency, and in mental diseases and constitutional reactions whenever expected, we are going for higher potency. This is a simple methodology we have to identify. So once we'll understand potency now. So whatever we are discussing now will be limited to potency. The dosage will be discussed at the end. I'll complete later. So what are the prerequisites, ideas you must have to understand the potency? To select the potency, first and foremost thing I strongly recommend is the knowledge of susceptibility. Without susceptibility, selection of potency is almost impossible. So once you understand susceptibility, simply speaking, I'm not going to the definitions. I don't want to be formal over here. Susceptibility, your ability to get affected, how sensitive you are, how reactive you are. That character makes you a susceptible person. So to select the potency, first and foremost thing is susceptibility. Then remedy reaction is a chapter. Most of the BHMS institutions we do neglect. Either teacher will neglect or the student will neglect. We'll try to understand remedy reaction only at the final year or the MD classes. Scenario has changed now a little bit. Now the site of the disease. Where exactly the potency you are applying? Site of the disease, like for example, when we read Silesia, we know it's a surgeon's knife, right? So it has a capacity to burst out your abscess. The site of the disease is very, very important. Excuse me. Example, the abscess is internally. Example, you are attacking a liver abscess. You cannot prescribe Silesia, you cannot repeat Silesia because we cannot afford to break the internal abscess, liver abscess, which may lead to collapse. If the same Silesia, if you apply in abscess, for example, any diabetic abscess or any other ulcer, which is having pus, the repetition of doses can be repeated and you can afford to repeat the Silesia very faster. So the site of the disease is very much important in these cases. And the intensity of the disease. We'll discuss all these things in elaborated form. Intensity of the disease is how much pathologically advanced the disease is. The rule we know, everyone we know. Pathologically advanced cases, the cure may not be possible. So we require a low potency and we cannot repeat the doses frequently. Wait and watch, observe the patient will be very important. And another thing is duration of the treatment. How long the patient has been suffering with the disease, what are the treatments that he has taken, the treatment history, past history, everything will consider. Everything will have to consider before selecting the posological principles. Right. This is a case of coronary artery disease I handled some 2 years back. I presented this in a seminar in Germany also. The first slide shows the patient had a double vessel disease, 50% block. After 1 year of the treatment, it came down to 10% and 20%, purely based on homeopathic medicines. See, the condition is here, we cannot say every coronary artery disease can be controlled or cured or maintained with homeopathic medicines. The logic how I have chosen this is patient is cooperative first. Patient did not have any other complications except this. He was having hypertension, but the patient was not under any allopathic medical treatment. The angiography was taken and he came to me. So remedy which I have chosen is Arnica 1M. Don't ask me how I chosen and everything. Okay, I'm not discussing that topic here. Arnica 1M I have chosen because it was a blood clot inside, and arnica is supposed to act on the blood vessels. And the potency I have chosen here is arnica 200. Water dose. I have a water dose method. I'll take 2 pills into 10 spoons of water, stir it thoroughly, and the patient will be taking 1 spoon every 1 hour, repeatedly, daily. The patient has taken it for 6 months to 1 year without any complication, and this is a report still under observation. I cannot say him got cured. And such method I started applying in many number of patients. I know we have a controversy here. I have presented a paper on specifics in Heinemann literature also. There are specific medicines. I'm coming out of organon. Please excuse me. Even in Heinemann literature, Heinemann advises specific remedies. Like we have protocol methods coming on in homeopathy. I have tried on 4 such cases. Here I feel the arnica directly, if I have given, it would not have acted. I have diluted it in 10 spoons of water and I repeated it faster. So that might have helped in dissolving the blood clot. Now coming back to the theory, potency selection, I said susceptibility is very pivotal. So without susceptibility, you cannot understand anything, how to apply homeopathy. Now generally what we'll say, the intelligent fellow requires, because he contains high susceptibility, he requires high potency. See the dictum, the axiom here, higher the susceptibility, higher will be the potency, obviously. Now usually we'll see, we'll understand the nature of work of the patient. If he is a doctor, doctors are intelligent. So intelligent people are having high susceptibility. So doctors require high potency. But this is not the art. I have seen a rickshaw puller who is very intelligent, maybe because of his family problems or because of his poor status, he could not go to the school, but he is very intelligent. And every time I prescribe any medicine in high potency, it works very better to him. So that's what makes artistic side of posology. But general dictum, general axiom here is, generally the young people are more susceptible, so obviously they require high potency. The sensitive people are easily affected by any exciting cause, so they are more susceptible, so they require high potency. We know there are temperaments. We have a chapter in H.A. Roberts, temperament chapters. Sanguine, intelligent people are highly susceptible. Sanguine, the blood is rushing very fast. So they're very fast people. They are very highly intelligent people. They are more susceptible people, so they require high potency. So selection of potency based on the temperaments also you can choose. Jealous people, it is not a good thing. Even jealous people who are very reactive, apis mellifica, the jealous lady. So they also require high potencies generally. The intellectual people, emotional people, because of their reactive capacity, they are highly susceptible, so they require high potency. Now coming back here, old age people. I know there is a controversy here. Old age people have low potency, so they require low susceptibility, so they require low potency. The torpid, dull, the phlegmatic. The phlegmatic constitution is very dull, very sober. So they require low potency and sluggish people, obviously. There is again one controversy. Kalkireakov is there. He is basically inertic, but he is not dull. He is inertic, but highly reactive. So we have to be very careful when choosing such subjects. These are the guidelines where we can choose the potency. Third point here is functional pathology. SORA, right? Generally, SORA has a reversible functional pathology. So functional pathology, diseases where you have functional pathology, you can go for high potencies. I'll share one case here. My own father, some 5 years back, he was having diarrhea. So it was some food poisoning. It was a typical arsenic alba physical symptoms. I have chosen arsenic alba 30 because he was an old patient, old man. So even repeatedly when I administered, I tried in water dose, my own water dose, it didn't work out. When I shifted to arsenic alba 1M, so he reacted very faster. Within half a day, his problem stopped. So maybe that is a functional pathology where his reactivity was high, the pathology has high, symptom similarity was very better. You can see the more the similar the remedy is indicated, the higher will be the potency. These are the dictums we have to make in practice. Higher the vitality. If the vital force capacity is high, so it can easily take the remedy and it can produce the curative response, the primary response and the curative response. The curative response will be higher, so you have to go for higher potencies. Homeopathy is dynamic, we said. We are acting in a dynamic level. So mental symptoms. So the graph which I have shown you in the back, the mental picture, if it is similar, the remedy has a capacity to produce a mental similar remedy only in a higher potency. So based on the available mental picture, so obviously you have to choose the remedy in a higher potency. So the dictum here is higher the similarity of the symptoms, higher will be the potency. Higher the similarity of mental picture of the patient suiting with the selected remedy, higher will be the potency. Another dictum we have learned in our potentization classes, drugs with crude, violent nature. Drugs which are very crude, very dull, poor indicated. For example, Silesia is there, which is very dormant in its physical property. It will work only when you highly potentize it. So that is why Silesia works better in higher potencies. Remedies which are violent in nature. Best example is lachesis. In its crude form, it's a poison. So you cannot use them in lower potency. Obviously, you have to go for higher potencies. They are safer. Another example is nosode. The nosodes are also required in higher potencies. Better to choose them in higher potencies. Now coming to the lower potency, advanced pathology. The best example for this is cancer today. Most of the cancer cases we cannot boast cure over. We may have to palliate or have to maintain the quality of life. So you have to control the advanced pathology with the least possible potency selection we'll have to do. So obviously the vitality is diminished in advanced pathological conditions. So you have to select a low potency. A poorly indicated remedy. Usually we'll come across in our day-to-day practice. Patients may be indolent or patients might have gone to some other doctor. Patients might have faced repeated failures. Example, a patient having migraine, he might have visited a number of allopathic doctors, number of homeopathic doctors or Ayurvedic doctors, where he could not get any response. So generally, when he comes to you, he may not cooperate. In such cases, Heinemann and Dr. Kent says always better to start the treatment with placebo. Placebo is very good here. Even this comes under posology. How to use placebo effectively. Or if you are more interested in palliating the patient initially, you can go for lower potencies. I said selecting based on physical symptoms. This was a case of indolent 75 years man. He had a olecranon bursitis. It's a recent case. The remedy I have chosen purely based on specificity is Ruta. Ruta grandiolus. So Ruta was given in water doses, my favorite. I treated this case for 2 months. First initial repetition I tried with Ruta 30. No response was seen. The next visit I changed Ruta to 200 potency. 2 pills. I use 40 size globules. 2 pills in 10 spoons of water. 1 spoon every 1 hour. Daily you'll have to take. The second month it has disappeared. So here the selection of remedy was not based on any classical method, purely based on the pathology, the sphere of action of Ruta. I have chosen Ruta and I have repeated it. And it became specific to me in 2 to 3 cases also. Now comes the dictum. In acute diseases, generally, we have to repeat the potencies in successive methods. Again, it's a controversial topic and it is a confused topic to most of the juniors here, junior doctors and students. One school says single remedy, another school says multiple remedies, one school says single dose, another school says repeat the doses. Please go to 6th edition of Organon. See, most of the doctors are sticking to 5th edition of Organon. In homeopathy alone, we are sticking on to the old editions. We'll have to use the advanced editions. See, when you go to 6th edition of Organon, 282 footnote, Heinemann says, the recently developed miasmatic diseases, they not only tolerate but also require frequent repetition of doses. So you have to repeat the doses very frequently in acute diseases. Another quote I'll get from B.K. Sarkar. Heinemann's Organon, B.K. Sarkar says, acute diseases, the pathology is very violent and faster. So obviously when the dynamic miasm is very violent, very powerful, you have to prescribe. The administered remedy is also in higher potency. Of course, similimum has to be very similar. So once the similar is highly suitable, you have to select the remedy in higher potency. So acute diseases may require, and they require frequent repetitions and higher potency. Every successive remedy has to be higher than the previous, higher potency has to be given from the previous remedy. For example, you treat 30 today, tomorrow you'll have to go for 200 potency, or within 1 hour also you can repeat. For example, there is a doctor, pioneer, Dr. Gordon, you might have read it. Dr. Gordon gives successive potency method. He advises to give, supposing Ruta is indicated in a case today, morning he advises to give Ruta 30, and the same day evening, you have to give Ruta 200 potency. And he says it works very faster. He is a contemporary to Clark. And repetition of remedies, every remedy has to be repeated in successive higher potencies. This is a dictum. No sorts as a general rule has to be administered in high-end potency. The previous slide we have discussed, because no sorts are very dangerous in crude levels and lower potencies. It is better and safer to prescribe no sorts in higher consecutive potencies. Tautopathy, which I never applied, but generally Dr. J.T. Kent, he says tautopathic prescriptions can be given in higher potency. For example, you got a case of steroid abuse. The same steroid can be given in a higher potencies, which is supposed to remove the bad effects of that particular steroid. In chronic diseases, it is safer always to start with lower potency and gradually ascend it to the higher. But if you are confident, there is no rule, your own experience teaches it. If you are sure about the remedy, and if the similarity is higher, if mental picture is higher, if the disease pathology is not pathologically advanced, but is a functional pathology, it can go in chronic cases also, higher potencies. Hypersensitive patients and idiosyncratic patients, they prove every remedy they get, right? So it is always better to go for lower potencies. Organopathic remedies. Dr. Compton Burnett. We have to thank Dr. Compton Burnett and French homeopathic doctors for this. Organopathic remedies. I have been using organopathic remedies selectively. Like bronchial asthma, I keep one organopathic remedy. Daily, the patient will be taking it. The philosophy behind organopathic remedies is they are scavenger remedies. They'll try to remove, they are antioxidant therapies. They'll try to remove the blockage, or they'll try to remove the strengthen the power of the particular organ. So the name organopathic remedies have been given to them. Not so well proven remedies. Boric is filled with it, right? Whenever we teach third year and final year remedies, like your Ravalfia, Justicia, Adatuda, Bacopa. So these type of remedies, if you go to Ravalfia, only one indication will be there. If you go to Cyzesium, they are not proven according to Heinemann principles, but still we are using them. So they, until unless they have been well proven again, so it is better always to administer these remedies in a low potency, or if possible in mother tincture forms also. That is why these remedies are generally used in mother tincture forms. This is another case of diabetic ulcer I treated. The path I have chosen here is the patient is around 58 years age. He is a Muslim and he is a real estate businessman. He was a very rich fellow. And he has been taking insulin for around 15 to 16 years, and he cannot survive without insulin. Now he developed this ulcer. So what I have chosen here is I have chosen Tarantula cubensis water dose. Don't ask me what is the indication. I'm not going there. I'm limiting to postology. We'll have a discussion later. Tarantula cubensis water dose, but along with Tarantula, he was continuing his insulin treatment as per the dose. I don't call it as a classical case, but my intention was the patient was expecting me to control, I don't use the word cure here, control the diabetic ulcer. So I have chosen, of course, I have changed the remedies also in between along with the Tarantula cubensis. 4 months it has taken for me completely. It got eradicated, no recurrence so far. It happened 2 years back. Another important thing, we said where to hit, when to hit. The time of administration in postology is very important. I'll quote one from Master first. Two indications Master gives. One, the important episode now happening is the pandemic and epidemics. Once the patient comes from an epidemic attack, he recovers. Heinemann invariably advises to use Heparsulf-1 as an anti-suric remedy. This is supposed to improve the patient and bring back the previous healthy condition of the vital force. So Heinemann specifically recommends Heparsulf in high doses after the patient recovers from epidemic. For example, go back to intermittent diseases. The constitutional remedy in intermittent diseases should never be given before the attack or during the attack. It has to be, as a rule, to be given after the acute attack is over. This is a rule, this is a dictum. So time of administration is very, very important. Second thing Heinemann quotes, Master Heinemann quotes is, a lady having heavy menstruation, menorrhagic menstruation, Naxomica is a specific indicated remedy after the menses stops, after the flow stops. So to stop the flow, heavy flow, you may require some other remedy. But after the lady recovers from the acute attack, Naxomica has to be given after the period is over. So time of administration also very important in postological principles. So some important indications, time of administration, I have taken this from Principles of Practice by Davle sir. Best time for selecting or administering the anti-suric remedy is early morning by empty stomach. Why this? The patient's vitality is very fresh. The patient's mind is very fresh. So once after a good sleep, when the patient gets up, the best time will be early morning by empty stomach. Sulfur acts best by empty stomach. And another thing in Naxomica is better to administer in the evening times because that is the aggravation time for Naxomica. The no-source intercurrent constitutional remedies administered after the acute attack is over. Yes, there are some theses have been produced by so many doctors that no-source can be used as an indicated remedy also. We are not opposing that. If symptoms are indicating, no-source can be used even during the acute attack also. But no-source have to be given always with caution. Now, there are certain dictums in repeating the remedy, axioms, the rules. Perceptible, progressive, and striking increasing amelioration precludes every repetition of the administration of any remedy. We know once the improvement starts, better to stop. Don't repeat the remedy. Because the vital force has taken the primary action, we know it, and we are allowing the vital force to produce curative action. Stuart Law says repeat the dose only when the improvement ceases. But here in contrary, I would like to quote how to wait and how to repeat. Wait and watch method is Dr. J.T. Kent's. In the introduction of his book, probably it is a repertory or Metamedica book, J.T. Kent shares one case where he has chosen Casticum and he waited for 6 months after administering a single dose of Casticum. He was so confident that Casticum will bring out the curative response in the patient. There he quotes, Casticum, Beretica are the two remedies, they act very slower. They are slow acting remedies, unlike Belladonna and Naxomica, which are very fast acting remedies. So he waited for 6 months. Can you imagine that? And he says the curative response has come. Dr. J.T. Kent shares the case. So repetition of remedy is like balancing act, I said. So the basic rule is once the improvement comes, once you start observing homeopathic aggravation, please stop the repetition. I made a table for the same, which already we have discussed. Stop repeating once the curative response is seen. How to identify curative response? Organon is filled with it. Homeopathic aggravation. Status quo. I think this point Dr. Dhawale has discussed very nicely in his cases, principles and practice of homeopathy. Status quo is a condition where nothing seems to be happening. You administer the remedy, you have chosen the remedy very carefully, you are so confident about the indicated remedy, but the patient says nothing is happening. Neither aggravation nor amelioration. Dr. J.T. Kent and Dr. Dhawale says, please wait. Don't repeat. Stop repeating. The vital force might have taken or might not have taken. So if vital force has taken the action, primary action, any time we can get the curative response. So any repetition may spoil it, according to him. If old symptoms recur, you know this, right? Kent's toll observations. Repetition, recurrence of old symptoms and appearance of skin eruptions, we call it as eliminative methods. Eliminative process is a good indication the vital force started cleansing the body. So please don't repeat, allow the medicine to act. In chronic cases, single dose is safer, but make sure if the chronic case is not dangerous, make sure the patient has sufficient time to wait. Make sure the patient has the patience to stay with you. See, we need to keep on the patient also. We cannot lose the patient for the sake of principles, right? Be practical in application. Coming to the right side table, in acute diseases, the dictum is you can repeat it, but once the curative response comes, you have to stop here also. In chronic cases, repeat with succession. This successive method is highly presented in 6th edition of Organon, which is a great deviation taken by Dr. Heinemann in repetition of doses. But here, we have to make sure Heinemann was talking about 50 millismol potency, not the centesimal potency. So when you want to repeat, Heinemann advocates 50 millismol potency. You can repeat them very fast. Gordon's theory of double doses, I already spoke about. The same indicated remedy can be administered morning in lower potency, and the consecutive evening you can give it in higher potency, according to Dr. Gordon. Dr. Wright's plusing potency, we know that. If symptoms still agree, repeat the same remedy. But the dictum here is the potency has to be little higher than the previous. This is another case I can say. I have chosen Sorainum here, Sorainum 1M. This lady, I say Sorainum and acid phosphoricum as a specific remedy. I know most of you agree with it. You might have tried this also. Dr. J.T. Kent also recommends this, Alopecia areata. This lady was a allopathic pharmacology student, and she was hesitant enough to come to homeopathic treatment. She was not at all cooperative, and it was a case of autoimmune alopecia areata. So within 4 months of repetition of Sorainum 1M, this improvement has come. Again, I am telling, don't ask me the symptoms, and we are not discussing the case. So this we have already discussed. If the first potency is not beneficial, give the same remedy in different potency. If symptom picture changes, miasmatic remedies that follow, complementaries. If improvement ceases, change the remedy, give a no-sode because there is a miasmatic blockage, or give a miasmatic remedy or intercurrent remedy. I call using no-sodes, miasmatic remedies, intercurrent remedies as a gear change. You change from first gear to second gear. So we have to bring up the speed. So it's a gear change. Intercurrent remedy is a gear change. French homeopaths and Dr. Compton has given organopathic remedies. They are the drainage remedies. Sometimes you may require that. Sometimes what happens is, in my experience, I share one case of urticaria. In fact, I started applying in every case of urticaria this method. I used to prescribe antimonium crudum. A patient who is a carpenter, so he came to me with recurrences of urticaria. He has been having for 6 to 7 years. He tried all allopathic medications. There was an initial improvement. Obviously, they come to homeopathy. So one thing I said, he has to take bath after his work. He should not take bath in the morning. Even if he takes after his work, he has to take bath. My explanation there was, along with antimonium crudum, so I asked him to cleanse his body. Maybe the powder particles, the wooden cutting powder particles, might have blocked the sweat glands. So once the cleaning is done, the sweating has started coming out, the patient improved, and the recurrence of urticaria has stopped. So the indicated remedy administration alone doesn't help over. Along with that, you will have to apply diet and regime also. In severe aggravations, if the patient is vitality is less, the disease is very pathologically advanced, it is always better to antidote it. When reverse order of Hering's law is coming, that means symptoms takes wrong direction, you require antidote. Again, there is a controversy. Homeopathy is born with controversy. I told you the topic itself is controversial because we don't have any dependable data given by our master Hahnemann. Can we alternate two remedies one after the another? Most of the doctors will say it is not classical. But go to chronic disease theory of chronic diseases, under chapter psychosis, the primary manifestation of psychosis, Hahnemann says the thuja and acid nitricum can be altered one after the other. Now come to boning essence, follow-up remedies. Then what is the remedy reaction then? What is the second prescription then? See, you may have to repeat the remedies in cases. By 6th edition, the rules have changed. The single remedy is no more a classical. Of course, if you can achieve a cure by single remedy, you are a master prescriber. A remedy reaction is also a part of posology principle, according to me, because posology deals with selection of potency, repetition of doses. When it comes to repetition of doses, Kent's 12 observation teaches you a lot. But one point I observed, I have been teaching Organon and Metromedica For around 20 times, I would have repeated theory of chronic disease to teach my students. If you go to anti-psoriatic remedy in chronic diseases book, the Kent 12 observations have been already explained by our master Heinemann, which Kent has elaborated and made it very simple. Please go and refer them. Anti-psoriatic remedy under theory of chronic diseases, the 12 observations of Kent are always present in chronic diseases. This is my opinion. This you might have studied in BHMS and MD classes. This is the repetition. Prolonged aggravation and final decline of the patient. We'll just go through very faster. Prolonged aggravation and final decline. The death of the patient has happened. So what we have done here, according to our previous theoretical knowledge, we have to understand. We try to attempt a pathologically advanced case. For example, to make it simple, we are attempting an advanced cancer case where the disease has advanced very faster. Here, palliation has to be done because there is no vitality left out. When vitality is not there, if you prescribe a higher potency and repeat the doses very faster, the vital force cannot withstand it. So even vital force response, the body is not in a condition to take the secondary curative response. So death is inevitable. Long aggravation, but final slow improvement. So we have tried to attempt a case which is also a pathologically advanced case, but we could able to succeed because there was a sufficient vitality left out, and the body was also on a. It is a condition like a cat on a wall. We attempted to try a cat on a wall case. The cat would have fallen on the death side, or cat would have fallen on the cure side. So we attempted. So long aggravation and final slow improvement. I am not going into deep because we already studied this. Aggravation is quick, short, strong with rapid improvement of the patient. The third observation, we call it as a homeopathic aggravation. After administering a remedy, the aggravation is seen, which is quick, short, strong with rapid improvement of the patient. So we are very happy because we can promise the patient, yes, aggravation is seen, my medicine has acted, so you got cured. No aggravation with the recovery of the patient. Fourth observation of Kent. I call it as ideal utopic case, homeopathic case. Here you gave a remedy, the patient has improved and says, I am very happy. But the physician should not be happy here because it may be a status quo or it may be an amelioration also. You cannot guarantee the patient. Only by observation you can understand. So third observation is comparatively indicated in a practice than a fourth observation of Kent. It's a case of parotid cyst. There was a history of cancer in their family. So the surgeon wanted to operate and send it for biopsy reports, but the family was not ready for that. So I have chosen remedy apis mellifica and iodine alternatively repeated. And 3 months the improvement has seen. But in this case, again, I went for water dose. I repeated only a single dose in the morning because it was a 5 months baby, I hope. The repetition of doses, I limited myself. The dose selected was also very less, 200 potency, and daily a single dose was given. Amelioration comes first and aggravation afterwards. Either the remedy was superficially selected as a palliative, so aggravation came, amelioration came and the patient was aggravating. So the aggravation may be disease was recurring again. So you have to again take the case and you have to select a remedy. Too short relief of the symptoms. That means the remedy was superficially selected. So what to do now? It was only palliative. Either you have not taken the case properly or you are trying to attempt a pathologically advanced case. Full-time amelioration of the patient, yet no relief of the patient. So organic damage has happened, or you are attempting a case which was not curable. So you have to only palliate the case. Prognosis will be very bad. Some patient prove every remedy they get. Very famous and easy observation for every student. Idiosyncrasy, I need not tell about it. we have to go with a very low potency, or we have to prescribe a placebo here. Action of medicine upon prover. It is not a therapeutic observation. It is an observation of a prover. New symptoms appearing. That means the patient was going in a opposite manner of Hering's law of cure. When any new symptoms develops, we have to note down those new symptoms, and we have to identify whether these symptoms are the symptoms of the remedy administered or the disease symptoms. Both of them are very bad. That means the remedy was not chosen properly. We will have to change the remedy. Old symptoms recur. When the old symptoms recur, it is a very good indication. So we have to stop the remedy, repeating the remedy, and we have to observe and watch. Symptoms takes a wrong direction. That means the case was getting suppressed. Suppression is not at all indicated in homeopathy. At least palliation in aphorism number 67 footnote Heinemann says, but suppression is not at all indicated. It is very dangerous to the patient. It goes from periphery to center. So always it is better to antidote or change the remedy or change the total plan of treatment. Placebo, we said, I think we have elaborated discussion by a speaker previously on placebo. Placebo can be used intelligently by a practitioner, which is very useful in our posology. Dosage. Now, today, when you go to any state in India right now, the current scenario, arsenic alba 30 is indicated for COVID-19, but some doctors are prescribing 2 pills, some doctors are prescribing 3 pills, some are prescribing 4 pills. So here the selection of the dosage. The dosage is the amount of the medicine required, the physical amount of the medicine required, sufficient enough to moisten the tongue or trying to stimulate the nerve endings on the tongue. So if you are using 40 size globules, you can go for 2 pills. If you are using 30 size globules, you can go for 3 pills. If you are using more than that, you can go for 4 pills or 5 pills. So like that, you can choose your dosage. Dosage is a physical quantity. The quotation where on the slide I have taken from Boni Gassen's book. This is the quotation you will get from Stuart Close, Posology, chapter in Genius of Homeopathy book. After discussing posology, again Stuart Close concludes, any potency or any dose can be used by a skillful physician in an effective manner. Thank you very much for sparing your time and patiently listening to me. Thank you very much. Your feedback is expected. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for such a nice session on posology and describing each and every point so clearly. We have a question answer session now. So I would like to request our audience to please put up your questions in the chat box, whichever question you have from sir. We already had some questions, sir. Shall I?
Please.
Shall I just explain? There was a question from Dr. Dhruv Panchal. He's saying how to start the dose for the patient, means how to move with potency from high to low or low to high.
I think we have discussed this already. In acute cases, we have already said, if the pathology is functional and if the selected remedy is highly simillimum, you can go for a high potency. If in acute cases, if the simillimum remedy is not exactly selected, it is always better to start with low potency and gradually increase to the higher.
Okay, sir. Thank you. There is one more question from Dr. Janini Ravachandran. She's asking. She's asking that it was a advanced pathological condition, the case you were dealing with, and he was an old man suffering from a chronic disease. So her question is regarding the potency, why Arnica 1M was being selected.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like I said, if you can recall my father's own case, arsenic alba was chosen. I gave arsenic alba 30. It didn't work. When I switched to arsenic alba 1M, it worked very faster. First thing is, my father never had any problems. He was neurologically old, but mentally he was very strong. The same thing happened with this patient. If you have followed the case properly, I think you are referring to the coronary artery disease, hopefully. The patient was having coronary artery disease, double vessel disease, and he was diagnosed with double vessel disease. The patient was not under any medication, and the patient was hale and healthy, except the reports were troubling him. And he was not taking any medication. He was still working, okay, in a private company, and he has a good life. No sugar, nothing was there. So I have taken the chance.
Okay. So there is one more question from Dr. Sharmishta. She's asking when and how this to select the same medicine with different potency. Like if you, as per the case, she's asking like high, low to high. How can
Can
we
you
select
please
the
come
same
again?
medicine?
Can you please come again,
Sir,
please?
she's asking when and how to select the same medicine with different potency.
Same medicine with different potencies.
Like maybe she's asking ki, in any case, which potency is to be selected, like low you need to select or high, how you need to judge.
Judgment, I think I gave case of Silesia example I gave you. Abscess case. Silesia is indicated. It's surgeon's knife. I generally, if you go to leaders of therapeutics by Nash, Nash recommends Moxol, Heparsulf, and Silesia are beautiful remedies for pus disorders like abscess. But I recommend Silesia, which is very suitable in South India. I don't know about North India. Silesia has never depressed me in abscess cases. But as I said, if you are attempting an internal disorder like liver abscess, where imminent danger to the patient will be there, the same Silesia has to be given in low potencies. Whereas if you are attempting an abscess which is present on the outer surface of the body, you can invariably break it. So you can go for higher potency, you can repeat it.
Okay,
Right?
so
Same. I think the question has to be a little precise. You can retype it, doctor.
yeah. So there's one more question from Dr. Rekha. Have you used drainage remedies in your practice? Any
Yes, I
specific
am.
you would like
Yes,
to
yes.
recommend?
Yeah, I told you I am a teacher of organon, but I call myself as a scientific homeopath. Whether you like it or you don't like it, I have presented so many papers on specifics in Heinemann literature and pioneers of homeopathy. I have used drainage remedies, especially I call myself as an asthma specialist. Proudly, I can say that my patients have got cured about it. In asthma cases, invariably I put the patient on aspidosperma, Justicia adatoda, as a drainage remedy. Daily single dose they'll take it for 6 months. Nothing happens, and the patient feels much better. And like everyone uses Ravalfia, Serpentina, Berberis vulgaris, all these things. And recently, I have handled autism cases. I started only recently, 2 years back. I started treating autism. Bacopa moneri, I started administering to autistic and ADHD patients. They are improving in their behavioral disorders.
Great, sir.
I,
Thank you so much for such a good clinical tip. I too have used aspidosperma as well as Justicia and have got maybe good results.
yeah, they say it's cardiac asthma,
There
but
is
still it
one more
works.
question. I think
Please.
yes, sir. In fact, for you've given a clinical tip of Bacopa as well. I've got good results in. I was into a project during my internship, so I've seen autistic patients. We have a school here in Delhi of autism. So there we used to prescribe Agrafis Newtons as well.
Okay.
It had a very good result on for the
Very
speech
good. Very good.
difficulty. Whoever has speech difficulty.
Yeah,
Agrafis
very
is a
good.
very good remedy.
Because to
So,
share with
sir, we have one more.
please. Please carry on.
We have one more question regarding from Dr. Dhairya Pathak. He's asking, in chronic case, after prescribing a remedy, if initial improvement occurs, then after some time symptoms appear again. In such conditions, what should we do?
Example, like, can you quote what type of chronic disease? Okay, they cannot be spoken now, right? In chronic diseases, initial improvement is there and later the symptoms recurs, right? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah, yes, madam. Can you please repeat it once again? Can you repeat it? I have some.
Sir, he's
voice.
asking in chronic. He's asking in chronic diseases if initial improvement occurs and then symptoms reappear. What in such conditions? What should we do?
If symptoms if symptoms are reappearing, classically speaking, you have chosen a palliative remedy. You have not chosen a curative remedy. You may have to reconsider the case and you have to evaluate the symptoms, collect only the constitutional symptoms or physical generals of Kent. Then you will be able to choose a remedy which covers the organism and vital force and mental symptoms or physical generals, not the palliative remedy. Maybe you have chosen a palliative remedy. That's why symptoms are recurring in the same manner.
Thank you, sir. There is one more question from Dr. Kaushal. He's asking, sir, as you said, we should administer constitutional remedy only after an acute attack is over. Then in case of asthma, where the patient is prone to attack every day, how we are supposed to deal with the case? Can we give the constitutional at that time, or the specific is enough?
Constitutional remedy as a rule, and practically even I believe 100%, should not be given during the acute attack, because see, even theoretically speaking, acute attack is the exacerbation because of some exciting cause, whereas chronic case is because of the fundamental cause. So to eradicate the fundamental cause, for example, let us take technically also medically, general medically, a patient would have had acute exacerbation because of some precipitating factor, whereas the main fundamental cause is the elevated immunoglobulin autoimmune level, so which may not be controlled over a period of time. First, you have to administer an acute remedy or acute asthmatic remedy which covers the acute attacks, the particular current episode. That acute totality you have to collect. I think there is no controversy here, because spiritual homeopath J.T. Kent also agrees. A physician who confuses between acute totality and chronic totality will not achieve his goal. First, you must know how to choose the acute totality. Once acute totality is selected, for which acute remedy has to be administered, when the patient recovers, then you will have to administer a constitutional remedy based on the chronic totality.
Great, sir. Thank you so much. There is one more question from Dr. Jay Sangotkar. He's asking, sir, Boric mentions under few remedies that the remedies should not be repeated frequently. But Master Hahnemann has mentioned in the Organon of Medicine that repetition should be done as the case demands. So what should we do?
I think Master knows everything. We can go with Dr. Hahnemann. And the second thing is, as far as posology is concerned, the basic dictum is experience, your skill. And I don't think so you cannot apply them generally. If you are attempting a pathologically advanced severe case, please don't repeat them, wait and watch by giving a single dosage. Whereas if you are attempting a chronic case, give a single dose and wait and watch. Right?
Thank you. Thank you. There's one more question. I think this cannot be answered from Dr. Priya Gauri. It needs another session. Route of administration, relation with selection of potency.
Route of administration.
Relationship with.
Relationship with?
Relationship with potency selection.
Route of administration, see, after various experiments and manifold experiments, Heinemann has settled for oral administration of remedies, right? So obviously any potency has to be given through oral route as far as 6th edition of Organon is concerned.
Thank you, sir. We have more questions. So how to
Please.
differentiate between functional and advanced pathology from Dr. Shivam Pandey. He's asking functional and advanced pathology.
Of course, that's what makes us a scientific homeopath. See, in BHMS portion and MD portion, we are also reading general medicine, obstetrics, surgery, and pathology. Why do we read that? To understand the pathology. In second year, you're reading pathology, microbiology in par with MBBS students. Why do we do that? To understand. For example, Stuart Close general pathology chapter, if you understand, Stuart Close says in disseminated microbiological infections, homeopathy may not be useful. Disseminated, because it has widespread, you may have to admit the patient. The same thing applied to COVID-19, current scenario now. As per WHO is concerned, the pathology of COVID can be divided in 4 grades. First 2 grades are managed with OPD cases. So homeopathy has a role there. The advanced cases, when the COVID goes inside, that means the lower respiratory tract, and severe acute respiratory distress happens, fibrosis of lungs happens, obviously OPD you cannot treat it, right? So you may have to admit the patient in the IPD. You require help of allopathy physician or a person who can handle them properly. So your general pathology is helping you, your knowledge of medicine is helping you to differentiate advanced pathology and functional pathology. And one other thing, classically speaking, you cannot evaluate the symptoms, the totality of symptoms, unless you know the pathology of the patient. All pathological symptoms are not considered for the evaluation, isn't it?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think we have many more questions. Sir, please type your email ID for the attendees to ask any queries if they have. In the chat box only, you can just type your email ID.
Yes,
so
doctor.
that if ask you the queries. So here we come to the end of this session. I would like to introduce you to for tomorrow's webinar as well. We have tomorrow's webinar tomorrow also a webinar at 3 o'clock only. And in the evening as well, we have a series of webinars from Dr. Amar Singh Sinha Nikam sir's team from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. If you want to register for the same, I'll just send you the link in the chat box as soon as possible for today's webinar series. That is a 4 days webinar series from today to Sunday. That is 24th March. We also have a webinar tomorrow at 3 o'clock, the same time, on infertility as well as menstrual disorders by Dr. Mirza and Dr. Gunu Sridevi, ma'am. So we have them. I'll just put the link in the chat box so that you can register for the same. And now we come to the end of the session. For any queries regarding this webinar from Dr. Nagendra Babu sir, you can put up the questions to him as well on his email ID, or you can mail us to webinar@homeopathy360.com if you have any queries. So I just want to thank Dr. Nagendra Babu sir for being with us today and taking out time managing after all everything. So he has managed to take out time to guide the audience regarding posturology through our platform. So on behalf of 360 and the whole VJN group, I would like to thank you, sir, for giving
Thank you.
your valuable time to us. My
Thank you.
heartful thanks also goes to all the learners who have been with us today. So because they are the ones for whom we are organizing such webinars daily. And before I sign off today, also I would like to thank Dr. Rajesh, who have been with us consistently at the back end to make sure that the webinar runs smooth, and my whole team of Homeopathy 360, who has been working day in and out for such webinars and for bringing all the information related to homeopathy on the portal. That is www.homeopathy360.com. We'll also try to share the recorded version of this webinar soon on our YouTube channel, Homeopathy 360. You can follow the page, follow the channel, and you can see the recorded versions of previous webinars as well on our website as well as Homeopathy 360 YouTube channel. If you have any queries, you can mail us to webinar@homeopathy360.com. I'll just put the link of the other two webinars, today's webinar series as well as tomorrow's webinar in the chat box. So thank you so much once again, sir, for being with us today
Thank
and
you very much, madam. Thank you all. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity. Yeah.
guiding us so nicely. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. So I'll just put the link in the chat box for everyone. This is today's webinar series of the 4-day webinar series from 21st to 24th of May from Dr. Amar Sinha Nikam sir and his whole team. They'll be discussing on different cases with the special comments from Dr. Nikam sir. And we also have a webinar on infertility and menstrual disorders tomorrow. I've put both the links. You can register through these two links for the webinars. And we'll see you then in the next webinar. Thank you so much for being such a patient and a nice audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma. Bye. See you.